Hi you there. I'm going to talk you through installing Arch Linux. Afterwards, I'll finish off with a couple of tips on good management. It's surprisingly easy, and if you stay away from clever shortcuts and smart helper applications, and instead do it properly, you'll end up with the most stable and flexible Linux installation you've ever used. Before we start, please be advised to back up all data from the computer you will be installing to. We will be wiping your disk and all previously stored data will be irrevocably lost, so please do back up any data you want to keep. There's really only one rule to Arch Linux. That is to use the Arch Linux Wiki. It is one of the best sources of information on Linux management on the web, and it is aimed specifically at Arch Linux. In choosing to install Arch, you choose a path of learning, and to learn, you must study. In this endeavor, the Arch Wiki will be a reliable friend. Now let's get started. First, we'll bring up the Arch Wiki. On the main page you'll find the installation guide. The installation guide is very frequently used, and has been thoroughly fine-tuned, so it makes sense to let it guide us through the installation. The installation guide will recommend some initial reading material. It is good practice to read up a little on the things you are doing and the pages it recommends. Soon you will become familiar with the wiki. And you will appreciate how the knowledge you gain will give you better control of your computer. Now, the first thing we need to do is acquire an installation image. The wiki instructs us to head over to the download page, so let's do that. The download page gives you many options for acquiring the Arch Linux ISO image file. No matter what option you choose, it is a good idea to compare the checksum of the downloaded file to the checksum on the download page, just to make sure you received the file without fault, and avoid problems during installation later. You can burn the image to a CD or DVD, you can write it to a USB flash drive, or, if you want to install to a virtual machine, you can use the ISO file directly. This last option is what we will do. We will install Arch onto a virtual machine in VirtualBox. Let's head back to the installation guide, and scroll down to the information on preparing an installation medium. After you have created the boot medium, you need to boot it. In our case, we need a virtual machine, and I created one, like this. Although not necessary, I made it with EFI, instead of BIOS, because that is more common in new computers, and is likely what you will have, if you install on a real computer. We will soon get back to that. In order to boot the virtual machine, I attach the downloaded ISO as a CD-ROM, like this. We are now ready to boot the VM. Ahoo, warnings and stuff. It's coming along now. Good, the live ISO has finished booting, and we are now ready to start installing Arch. The first thing to do is correct the keyboard layout so it works right. In order to know what keyboard layouts are available, we can list them with the command locallyctl list key maps. Finally, we can select the key map we want with the command load keys. I have a Norwegian keyboard, so let's try that. Haha, I forgot my keyboard isn't configured yet. The locallyctl list key maps command produces a pageable list of key maps. Just press space to scroll through it, or Q to exit. When you find the correct code for your keyboard layout, you can load it with the load keys command. Finally, I can test the Norwegian keys. U, and, or. That looks good. In this way, the Arch Wiki will take you step by step through the installation process. You will sometimes get to a topic that's hard to understand. When that happens, look for links to further reading or explanations, and check it out. This is when you learn. Sometimes it may be hard, and you'll need to get back to the topic several times, but don't despair, hard stuff can be learned too, and you will get all the better for it. Now, we'll go through the remaining steps. I'll slow down when we get to important issues. Next up is a quick test to check if we boot in UEFI 64, UEFI 32 or BIOS mode. We will soon need this information when we partition our disks. By the way, please note that the Arch Wiki specifies whether a command should be given as a normal user or root, by showing hash as the prompt character for root, and $ for normal users. We also need to be connected to the internet. First, check the status of your network interface. If you have a wired connection with DHCP, you are most likely online already. Otherwise, the link to IWCTL provides concise information on how to connect to a Wi-Fi, and the link below shows how to connect using a static IP address. Here's the output from these commands from our virtual machine. When we are connected to the internet, the system clock should synchronize with time servers on the internet automatically, but the installation guide wants you to check, so check. Now, we have come to the matter of partitioning our disks. Disk partitioning is a complex issue, and the wiki provides plenty of links to more information. Luckily, it is also fairly straightforward. If this is the first time you install Arch Linux, I will recommend keeping it simple. Basically, we need a partition for the root file system, and also, as we are booting in UEFI mode, we need an EFI system partition. That's it for us. Please study the wiki at your leisure if you want to learn about more sophisticated setups. I will now demonstrate how this is done in our virtual machine. At the top we see the connected block devices. We have only one disk, dev SDA. Then we access that disk with fdisk. Typing M will show the available fdisk commands. Typing L will list the partition types fdisk can handle. Typing P will show the current partition table. Typing N will create a new partition. We will first make a 512 MB EFI system partition. Accepting the defaults will place it at the beginning of the disk, but we need to specify the size and the type. Next, we create the root partition. We allocate to it the remaining available disk space, and accept the default Linux partition type. We now have two partitions, the EFI and the root partition. Typing W writes the partition table to the disk, and we are done. The next step will be to format the partitions with the appropriate file systems. We made one Linux partition for the root file system, and one for EFI booting. This means the root partition will hold the entire file system on the computer. This is a simple and flexible partitioning solution that will cover most use cases. If you need swap, then a swap file can be a good alternative to a swap partition, but on your own computer, you are the boss, and you decide. Now, we need to format the partitions. The Linux partition can be formatted with a large number of alternative file systems, but ext4 is a good file system that is in common use, so we'll go with that. The EFI partition, on the other hand, must be formatted with FAT32. In our virtual machine, the output of these commands looks like this. This concludes the first part of this guide. However, the Arch Linux installation guide continues bravely on, and you are heading into some serious fun, so there's no need to stop now. Just remember to read, and take it one step at a time, and you will soon see that you don't need me at all. Take care, and have fun.